Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Narrative. Is the HCS Salt Lake City pre-show 2025. It's just a few days away now. We've got a ton to talk about heading into the major. Andy, first of all, of course. How you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, doing great. So excited about this event as always. It's incredible vibes with the SSG crew. We always have wonderful weather. We're lucky to be in Salt Lake in the summer with sunshine and anticipating very good coffee and very good Halo.
Very good coffee is very important to us as well.
Yeah.
It means that we can do our job at the level we want to do it. But we do have a very exciting announcement, which is something we are pretty gassed about, to be honest with you. Something that was revealed in a recent HCS SLC update from the SSG crew. We are premiering our first ever piece of merch for The Narrative, and it is a collab with SSG, and we are beyond excited about it.
Yeah, really excited about it. We've been wanting to do some gear with SSG for a while, and it's so awesome to finally be able to do it. If you're watching on YouTube, we'll quickly show off an early sample that was teased, but there's going to be a limited number of tees in Salt Lake City available at the SSG booth. We're also going to be hanging out at the SSG booth for a meet and greet, so keep an eye on SSG socials for when that will be. Just really excited to be able to do a drop with SSG. I mean, not only are they awesome guys and gals, but they make great merch, and it's sweet to be able to do a drop with them.
Yeah, we're pretty proud of it. We think it looks really, really cool, and we hope that everyone who sees it enjoys it as well. We're really excited about it. And the event, of course, is going to be awesome once again. We've seen the floor plan. The carnival is back, which is big news for you and I, Andy, as we are huge carnival game enthusiasts.
We are. I mean, who doesn't love a good carnival game? And whenever we don't have many series off this event, I will say it's a very busy schedule, but whenever we find ourselves with a little bit of a break, you will find us in the carnival.
We will be there celebrating the carnival. Want to talk some Halo?
Let's do it.
Let's talk some Halo. Let's get into it. It's been a little while since DreamHack, so let's do a very quick recap on what happened there. OpTic Gaming, of course, pulled off another losers bracket run to take the tournament. The grand final even more convincing than we saw in the first major of the year. The top three was rounded out by FaZe, which was a great performance from them, getting into that grand final. Then TSM, and then Shopify, and then SSG fell down to the top 8, which has caused a lot to change since DreamHack.
I mean, yeah, it's really crazy. I think a lot of people were talking about how this season was going to be a guaranteed 2-horse race. Yeah, all bets are off. That is not the case anymore after DreamHack. And then even with all those results you just mentioned, a lot has even changed since then, of course, as well.
So let's talk about the changes. First off, the biggest change. FaZe and SSG swap Lucid and Snakebite for Falcated and Suppressed, which is...
I mean,
huge news.
Huge news. I think everyone's followed it closely. Of course, if you're listening to the show, you almost certainly followed it and all of the spiciness that came with it. There were some other changes as well across complexity, C9, Omit, and I imagine we'll get to some of those. But really, I think this is a good callback to last episode where we asked if OpTic wins in a dominating fashion, do we see major team changes? And the answer was yes.
We were correct. People called us crazy, Andy.
They did.
People said that we were deluded.
They always do.
Where are you now? So with all that said, we normally go from first seed down, but we kind of have to address the team changes as a way to start dividing up who we're going to talk about when it comes to rosters.
Yeah.
Let's talk about FaZe and SSG, the rosters respectively. Some beef and some words exchange. Like you mentioned, we won't get into that. It's available for everybody to
you can see
out.
Lots of Twitch chat screenshots at your perusal.
Yeah, and then, it did get quite spicy.
It did, yeah.
Some very quotable quotes came out of it. Let's talk about FaZe, though. Let's talk about the lineup. It's the previous OpTic roster from last year with Snakebite instead of Formal. The SSG team composition goes back to Eco and Stella, adding 2 solid Slayers. They're looking for that firepower. My question to you, Andy, is who do you think won that trade?
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion, hasn't there? Initially, when the actual swap was announced, there was a lot of chat online, a lot of good Reddit threads on r/competitive Halo, and kind of good thoughts each way. And now as more results have come in, for example, some of the HCS Open results, some of the Halo Pro League results, and Scrim results, I think some people have been going back and forth. Based on the results I just mentioned, you could make an argument for either side because we've seen SSG winning series directly against FaZe, and we have seen FaZe winning series as well. So right now, I would say all arguments are on the table. You and I have talked a bit about this. I would say my gut tells me FaZe might have won the trade. But as I just said, right, there's results on paper that go against that. So I think that's my most interesting dynamic is that it's not only going to be SLC that decides who won the trade. Both of these teams are going to simply look at Worlds. And what's exciting is with 3 events still left, it's just Worlds that determines who won this trade, which is just like adds to the drama because you're going to have beef, you're going to have matchups, you're going to have potential upsets based on seeds and all of that. But Worlds will be the final say. But I'm curious what you think as well.
It's a really tough one, and it's very easy to say it's a tough one. And I'm sure there's a lot of people listening and like, just pick a side. Like, who do you want? But you look at the two rosters and it's like, there's not much between them. I mean, the way that I've kind of thought about it a little bit overnight, and my thought is FaZe right now probably won it just based on the existing chemistry that is between three of those players. You know, there's a natural way to play the game. They played together before for a year or so. So there's that natural thing, and Snakebite can kind of fit into that, and the formal role is very comfortable for him to kind of take over. But long term, we're looking ahead to Worlds with the potential that a player like Suppressed has and what Falcated can bring to the SSG team. Maybe it'll be SSG in the long run. So I will go for now FaZe, but in the long run, maybe SSG.
Okay,
it's an interesting one.
I like the point you make about comfort and chemistry is a really good one. We can now jump into each roster just really quickly before we continue moving on. I think FaZe has really encouraging performances online, but a lot of people have also been talking a lot about the level of comfort and chemistry with teammates and just how much you're seeing them play together, and you could just hear it in the comms. But let's not forget the 10th seed makes Pool B pretty spicy.
Self-inflicted 10th seed, though.
Yeah.
This is very interesting. Didn't play in the last HCS Open because they wanted to be in Pool B. But looking at Pool B, you've got TSM, who placed third at the last event, and you've got Nemesis, who love pool play. They beat everyone in pool play. This is going to be an interesting one because you've got a question, are they going to run away with that pool, or is there going to be a lot of resistance? It's a tough pool to be in, that one.
It is, and I think the cool thing we can say, and this isn't always the case, but I think we can actually say for FaZe, we're going to learn a lot about this team and the new look of FaZe based on those pool play results, just because it is that difficult of a pool.
Yeah, okay, we talked about FaZe. Let's talk about SSG. Let's talk about the new look space station. In the immortal words of Stella, they strayed from the formula, is what he said when all these team changes went down. And now you've got a question, is this now the right mix for this team with the return of two big slayers who will win, quote unquote, those pivs, those 1v1s in game?
Yeah, I think that's the question. And also, like you just mentioned, big shoes to fill. Like, can Falcated and Suppress slay to the level of Bound and Legend, which is what was required for this team to dominate? I don't know. They're both such talented players, but let's be honest, right? It's Bound and Legend is kind of the example that's been set, and also just even the team chemistry example that's been set with Stellar and Eco. I think you made a great point earlier this week when we've been preparing for the event about this is a big opportunity for Suppressed career.
Yeah, it certainly is indeed. You know, you're looking at that player, and this is the first headline roster, I would say, that he's been on. I mean, you look at the FaZe roster, of course, that made the finals last event. I think that shows the capability that the players like Suppressed and Falcated have, of course, but you really feel that this is a chance for him to break out now and be that next up superstar, so to speak. And I think it's going to come down to if he can fulfill that potential with the level of consistency in a big series and every big series that goes through the event, because we've seen him have these pop-off games, these pop-off moments, plus 15s, plus 10s, whatever it might be, where he just looks like one of the best in the world.
Yeah.
But against an OpTic or a new look FaZe, that has to be every single game in a series because of how tight these series are now.
Exactly. I think that's the key for me. Sometimes we talk about a player who needs to go big in big series. I think we're now at the level where every player in SSG, of course, Falcated and Suppressed included, need to be going big like every game, right? When we talk about the margins in this game right now, it isn't about big series, it's about every series. I think also a lot of pressure on them to perform and return to form here, right? This is their kind of hometown event. After dropping the way they did last event, it's no longer a question of, oh, how will this season pan out? It's like, oh, you're in the thick of the season and it needs to be figured out now.
And you got to remember as well, SSG were the ones who initiated team changes. Yeah. Stellar and Eco said we wanted Falcated and we wanted Suppressed. They took them from FaZe.
Yeah.
So if you don't perform at home in front of your crowd, what does the rest of the season look like for them? I mean, if it's a top 3 and beyond, you probably say, hey, all good, like we can improve. But if it's another top 4 and outside, things start to get very interesting.
Especially outside the top SSG. 4, that's when a lot of questions get asked. They might have a little bit of grace in the 4th spot, but I agree it has to be a top 3 target for the squad. I think that wraps up FaZe and SSG. Maybe now we jump into OpTic Gaming.
Yeah, the winners of the event.
So that tells you how busy this period in between events was that we're only now mentioning OpTic Gaming.
Yeah, of course. Winners of the event, both majors so far, or both events, so far this year have been won by OpTic Gaming. Pulled away from the pack a little bit, you would say, with those 2 wins, but the wins are narrow, and I think everyone looks, when you look back on the history books, as like, OpTic are dominating the season. They've won 2 events, and both their finals performances have been fantastic, don't get me wrong. But some of the narrow wins they pulled off in bracket play, the fact that they've gone down to the elimination bracket early as well, and the pool play has looked very rocky for them, there's still a huge amount to improve on here for this OpTic roster.
Yeah, what an interesting season. I think one thing that's worth noting is OpTic themselves certainly know how rocky it's been based on the OpTic podcast. But I also think that they realize how much they've iced up, and I wonder if that's given them a little bit of maybe too much confidence. I'm not sure. I won't worry too much on that. Instead, I'll focus on exactly like you said. I think the exciting thing for OpTic players and fans is that there is indeed they're already the clear favorite and putting together insane historic losers bracket runs that are going to game 5s, and they're having to ice up. You even heard Formal talking about how he had poor Slayer performances and the rest of the team is stepping up. For OpTic fans and players and the entire Green Wall, the big opportunity here is this team can be even better. They are not scratching their ceiling. They are the clear favorite because of the runs, and because, by the way, the rest of the pack has just kind of been a mess, if we're completely honest, with changing positions and now team changes. But that's, for me, is the cool thing about OpTic. You've got Bound and Legend looking for their 6th consecutive win. That would be, of course, a historic piece of the puzzle. But specifically, it's can they create even more distance between them and the rest?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and I think it's very interesting how we're kind of almost beating this to death. We always say how slim the margins are now in Halo Infinite. OpTic have been a couple of kills away, 2 events from placing top 12 and top 8. What does the season look like?
Yeah.
What do the rosters look like if that was to happen? But we have to say, they won the series, which is the big part.
Yeah.
But that's how close it is.
It is. I mean, you're talking about 1 grenade or 1 different split spawn. That's it. Yeah. Away from hugely disappointing placings. And they have won the series, but I'm really curious to see, does OpTic for the next few events of the year, can they find a way to, first of all, have dominant pools, right? They have been losing games in pools. Or can they just simply put together winners bracket runs? Don't get me wrong.
Go through the winners bracket, please.
Don't get me wrong. The losers bracket runs have been amazing to watch and exciting to see, but I think for OpTic fans who want to maybe have a little bit lower blood pressure, they're hoping that we can see even more dominance from OpTic Gaming. And there's certainly the opportunity is there for them.
Yeah, 100%. I think it would be amazing as well to watch Bound and Legend go 6 in a row. Yeah. That is like, we're starting to look at the record books. We're starting to dust them off and pull them off the shelf and flick through some pages to see where the records are. Certainly an infinite record. But yeah, that'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on. So that's OpTic done. The winners of the first 2 events of the year, looking for their 3-peat. Let's talk about Rebellion. Shopify Rebellion, all the way down, which feels like outside of the conversation. DreamHack a reality check. Question to you is, can this team return to the grand finals?
That is the question indeed. In Dallas, 3-2'd by FaZe in a 50-48 Game 5, and then 3-0'd by OpTic. I think it's a big fork in the road for Rebellion. I think no one's forgotten just how good they are. We can look at online results, which have been encouraging and unsurprisingly encouraging. But placings-wise, they have fallen out really of the same conversation. It feels like so long ago coming into the year when it was the OpTic and Shopify story. That feels like ages ago.
The 2-horse race, everyone was saying for this season.
Yeah, and everyone was like, this might be a boring year. We've only got 2 teams in this. It's like, wait, let's see how this plays out. But I got to say, I think it's a big fork in the road. And do they get right back into the grand finals? Or do they stay rocky from here? That's the question.
Yeah, I think minimum expectation is to get back into the grand finals. Just want to kind of highlight something that when we were looking through the bracket and the scores that kind of jumped out to us, which was they had the close series with FaZe that they lost, but then to immediately go into a game with OpTic for your tournament life and get 3-0'd. We look back on Arlington at the first event of the year, get to the final, lose a close series against OpTic in that final. Game 7, bracket gets reset, and then they get swept. Do you think that there's something there when they go through a tough loss that they're finding it difficult to regain in a way where they're showing their best in the following series?
Yeah, this is something you brought up to me, and I think it's a really good point. I am curious because, to be honest, when I look at those 4 players and best man as well, they don't strike me as kind of mentally weak players, right? They strike me as actually really strong, resilient players. And I wonder if it's simply being, because let's keep in mind both of those were OpTic matches, were they simply outplayed and OpTic found a new gear in each of those, or is there something there? I think it's really interesting. We're going to have to grab a few of the guys at this event and see what they think, because I do think it's something important to identify. They need to keep an eye on mental strength through the bracket and make sure that's not the case.
It's not a pattern you want to see repeating. It's certainly not. You want to be able to bounce back in that next series and get fired up. So a lot of eyes on Shopify Rebellion going into this event to rematch the form we saw at the start of the year. Looking forward to seeing what they do. We've got so many teams to talk about, by the way.
TSM next.
TSM next. Oh my goodness.
Because
3rd place overall. I actually skipped them. We were meant to talk about them before Shopify Rebellion. Let's talk TSM.
Pretty wild run, right? I think, number 2 seed after a solid performance in Dallas, of course, with FaZe forfeiting their seed. It's really a return to form for these longtime teammates. I think, anyone who's been watching these guys and fan of these guys for a long time would have been so stoked. But the story for them was really the narrow wins followed by the blowouts.
Yeah, you look at the 3-2 over Nemesis and Envy, who we'll get to a little bit later. And then they get 3-0'd by FaZe and OpTic thereafter. And of course, they proved in pool play that they can beat OpTic. Even though it feels like when you play OpTic in pool play, almost anyone can beat them at the moment for whatever reason. But finding that consistency to make a final has always felt like maybe a step too far for this roster. I feel like when you look at these 4 players, their goal has to be to make a final. Mm-hmm. These 4 playing together twice in Infinite now have made top 3, but fell short in the final. Of getting to the final, excuse me. Do you feel like they have the ability to get to that final, or do you think that ceiling is where it is for a reason?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's kind of the same question we've been asking about this mix of players for a long time, right? Because we've seen them touch the top 3 and things. For me, I think they have the capability, but it would need to be unlocking a new level. I think if they play the exact same Halo that they played in Dallas, I don't think so. But I think they're absolutely capable, whether that's through very specific game type reviews, maybe it's something with comms, maybe it's also just mentality. I think they can get there. The question is, can they get there by there's only a few events left. Can they do it by the end of the season?
My next question is, do you think Toilet can hit any more emotes in less time than he did?
No, that was the maximum.
That was insane.
That was the maximum IRL emote usage per second that I think we've ever seen. It was remarkable.
It was insane. Okay, let's talk about complexity. First place in the NA qualifier, the most recent one, and they have a huge opportunity with the seed that they have, 5th place, going into this event. You look at pools, should, and we know how pool play and how unpredictable Halo's been this season, be guaranteed 2nd, but can they catch the new SSG off guard? Because playing a new roster in pool play, there's no better time to cause an upset, and I'll say it, Ryan Noob's on the team. We'll get this one out of the way. Man loves an upset.
Yeah, normally I would say no, and I think like we already talked about, we have a lot of confidence in this new SSG roster. However, it's a Ryan Noob roster, and it's pool play. And there's nothing greater that throws a spanner in the works than Ryan Noob in pool play. And I think that the team can, like we said, should be a guaranteed 2nd. I'm hoping we at least see close games in that SSG series, but we'll learn a lot about SSG as well in that one. Do they kind of make quick work of this complexity roster? I think one thing we got to note as well is top 12 in both Arlington and Dallas for complexity so far. And the question is, can they turn the season around? Because the 5th seed's a good opportunity to do so. And that's what the task really is ahead, is to change the whole story for the year.
Yeah, got to make the most of that seed. I think they've been gifted that a little bit by FaZe's decisions and the team changes where they've ended up in 5th. So a real opportunity for complexity, as it is for Cloud9. 2nd place in the same qualifier that we were talking about, the NA qualifier. They got top 6 in Arlington, but top 12 in Dallas, which has led to a lot of team changes. The new lineup is Avucci, Boobadooboo, Collect, and Sab. And I think, do you think that brings a new lease of life to the roster? Because there's some pretty severe changes from what we saw at the start of the season.
Yeah, I think it does. I think the team changes would have certainly been made for a reason. And I think it's an opportunity for new life. There's a lot of Halo yet to play this year. C9 has had some really close series. I think a lot of people have watched kind of, especially down to the wire series with opponents on side stages that have drawn like unsurprisingly big crowds. The big thing for them is executing on that Zero Tenacity series, because that historically has been kind of an interesting matchup.
Yeah, it certainly has. Those collective of European players, they've made a change with Jimbo stepping down. But historically, Zero Tenacity have got the better of them in what feels like always a game 5, 50-49, 50-48, whatever it might be. So I'm sure what has historically been somewhat of a banana peel of a series for them will be something they're focused on as well. They won't want to let history repeat itself there. And if they do, of course, then they should be pretty comfortable in that pool.
Definitely. I think that brings us to a good transition here from the Zero Tenacity guys into their fellow European comrades in Nemesis.
Yeah, Nemesis won the EU qualifier going into this event. They did drop one, though, I will say, to the new look Zero Tenacity roster in the build-up to this event, which is probably just giving them a little bit of a kick up the backside and also a lot of confidence to Zero Tenacity. They have the 7th seed coming in. They are boot camping, most importantly. Should highlight that. They're currently out in North America right now, playing against some of the best in the world. We watched them play FaZe and Complexity before we recorded this podcast. Complexity result was fantastic. FaZe games were very, very close. But they have a tough Pool B, speaking of FaZe, thanks to the decisions made by FaZe again, where they're in with TSM and FaZe, both teams were top 3 in Dallas.
Yeah, and they're going to need to come out hot early to make sure they're ready for those matches. They've had some very good scrims recently, of course, some blowouts, 16-4 over Complexity, and even kind of big score lines where they're going double digits against NA teams as well. But it's once again for Nemesis, it's a back-to-back top 6, and the task for kind of Europe, has always been, okay, what lies beyond top 6? Yes, we've seen flashes for top 3 at LANs, but it's really how do they get to a consistency beyond the top 6. But I think the one thing that you and I have been talking the most about on this roster, and for good reason, is Snipe Drone.
Yeah, I think a lot of eyes have been on Wootum, understandably so. Such a unique player, mouse and keyboard. Watching his POV is very different to anyone else that we watched historically in Halo Infinite, and quite rightly has deserved a lot of plaudits for what he's done. But we want to talk about Snipe Drone, because Snipe Drone has continually and quietly gone about his business in a way which is now making people very aware of how good he is. And when we say people, we're talking about the likes of the OpTic guys, who are saying he's up there with some of the top NA pros. And when you statistically look at every event in Halo Infinite, and you can go back quite some time, very rarely has Snipe Drone had a bad game. I think you saw a quote from Bound, was it? It was like,
yeah, I think
I went game 5 and
on the OpTic podcast, I think they were looking up stats, and Bound was just like, if they went to game 5, I guarantee you Snipe Drone went off, right? I think there's just this expected level of consistency from Snipe Drone, and he just continues to be more and more talked about. And I think even with that said, he's still kind of under-discussed in the scene. So, like we said, a lot of Halo yet to play in this year, and there's a lot of opportunity for Snipe Drone and the entire Nemesis squad to put an even bigger statement on, kind of a punctuation point on this year.
Yeah, just a final point on Snipe Drone here. We've seen the success that Legend had, of course, moving over to North America and being given that opportunity. I really do feel if some of these rosters struggle to catch OpTic up, and another win goes to the OpTic roster this time around, I wonder if some eyes are going to start looking across the oceans once again, because I feel like Snipe Drone's, he's got it.
I mean, yeah, it's also worth noting just the break we have after Salt Lake, right? There's a little bit of time before you get to Charlotte and before you get to year-end rosters. So there will be one last opportunity for some shifts, and we'll have to see if a lot of eyes go his way.
Let's talk about Envy. And I'm excited to talk about Envy because they proved in Dallas that they are a serious squad that you need to prepare for. They won their pool in Dallas as well. They beat SSG 3-1, which is not a game 5 scrape. That's pretty convincing. And they were 1 kill away from a top 3 spot. Down to the wire, 49-48 game 5 loss to TSM. Yes, you are hearing that right. We didn't even hit 50 kills. TSM turling up inside a PD, just hoping that they were going to survive that last second or so, which they did. But I mean, you can't say enough good things about this Envy roster and what they did in Dallas.
Yeah, it's really wild to think about that run, and also to only be 1 kill away from a top 3 spot, because this year, and specifically Dallas, has already been enough of a mix-up that I think people are trying to figure out where do each of these rosters stand. If Envy had also broken into top 3, it would have been just added chaos, and I think a lot to be excited about for that reason as well. Still, though, even with the run that they made and a top 6 finish, I think a lot to be proud of. You put it best. They're simply a serious squad that you cannot take lightly, and they're going to look to even improve upon that. I think for me, there's 2 things I think about. First of all, for Piggy and Yaxon specifically, they had a really rough start to the year. They weren't making it out of pools with the rosters that they were on that we had discussed on earlier episodes. So to have really good kind of resilience and fortitude to find a roster that they have with Descendant and Precision and now have this placing, really big deal and really excited for them. Secondly, my question is, how do they use that narrow defeat as fuel, right? I guarantee you they have thought about that series most days since it took place. And I think that's simply the sign of a competitor who really cares about this, right? That's going to stick with them. And you hope as a fan of these players, if you're supporting this team, that they use that as fuel and that they are, right? I think top 6 Envy would still be a big story for them, and maybe they're threatening top 4 by the end of the year, whatever it might be. But I think for the entire organization and these players, it could be a really strong story if they're pushing even further.
It's a wonderful story of a roster as well, where sometimes I think you look at play styles, you look at in-game stuff, but I feel like personality-wise, when you were listening to the comms and stuff, everything just seemed to mesh very naturally. The play styles, the way they would talk to each other, just felt like out of nowhere this team just worked. You know, and it was great to see. And I go give Descendant a shout out as well, because I feel like he looked like he had evolved his game a lot. We knew he had this crazy individual skill. We knew that he was a flashy player, but he just looked like his decision making had improved tenfold from where we saw him being a little bit more kind of scatty earlier on in his career. So I just wanted to give him a shout out. I think that he really, really improved and has shown that he's got another level to go to as well. Yeah,
and I hope that each player and each team in these tournaments realizes, yes, we might be this far through the season, but there are so many series and so many games left yet to play. And this, guess what? The story's not written yet.
It's not.
And anything can happen this year. We've seen there are these historic runs that even happen at Worlds. Still everything to play for, which makes this year so exciting.
I mean, remember how the community and ourselves were reacting at the end of pool play? We were like, what is this bracket in Dallas? We were looking at it and like, what on earth is this? Second event of the year. It's not...
And I think that, there's
a lot more to come.
Exactly. And potentially inspiring for players. Just like, man, if anything can happen in these pools, in these brackets, and what we're seeing is, you know, putting the hours in finding the right chemistry with teammates and putting the hours in can not only drum up a lot of success, but really kind of get some really great tournament runs going.
So that's the discussions for the teams for now. And we turn our attention to our community question, which is where we want to know, wherever you're listening or watching, your thoughts on a very important question that we will pose to you. We mentioned how last time it was based around OpTic's performance. Would there be team changes? We're geniuses, what can I say? But this one's important to you especially, Andy.
It is, yeah. Let's roll the tape.
Wait, I got a quick question. Wait, John, what did you have for breakfast if you went down early?
Had like the buffet, whatever. I just had like fruit, oatmeal, eggs, sausage. And Legend had hella coffee.
And what'd you have?
A Snickers and a Monster? Because like John told me, like eating a Snickers in the morning is disgusting.
I mean,
like, is that true?
Yeah.
Actually. Okay, you should have something else before the Snickers at least.
Okay, but like, what's the perfect time to like eat a Snickers? Like, what time do you eat?
I'd say like that's a dessert. So just have, you know.
It's I think it's too much sugar to start the day. I mean, to be honest, if I'm you, I'm running it back the next tourney.
Yeah, it kind of works for me, I guess. I don't know.
Fuck it. Snickers at 10 a.m. before the biggest match of the tourney.
And you just paired it with a Monster, dude.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy, dude. I can't lie.
So we want to know, off the back of that, in the comments, what is the perfect time to eat a Snickers?
What, a Snickers?
But like, what's the perfect time to like eat a Snickers? Like, what time do you eat?
It's a tough question.
It is.
We like to ask the tough questions.
Okay, so when I was watching that, I remember exactly where I was when I first heard this episode, and I was in public and I busted out laughing because that follow-up from Legend is just incredible. He was getting so much shit from teammates, and he's like, okay, what is the perfect time? And yeah, we want to know your thoughts. Mark, let me ask you, actually. We should answer first as well.
What eat a Snickers?
Yeah, what is the perfect time to eat a Snickers?
Okay. It has to be, I would say, late afternoon as a little energy boost. Mm-hmm. But I would also highlight the discussion whether the Snickers should be fridge cold or, if you're a connoisseur of chocolate like myself,
Yeah.
It should be left in your pocket for around 20 minutes.
20 minutes?
Stay with me. It's not melted, but the paper is starting to stick.
Dude.
And it's got that kind of... I'm doing it with my hands right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is a weird thing to be doing with my hands. It's got that kind of malleable.
Do you mean malleable?
I think it's that English American.
Is it?
Yeah, I'm right. It's a malleable. It's wrong, isn't it?
It is wrong.
It sounds like it looks like a duck. It's bendy, all right, and it kind of falls under its own weight.
So you kind of want your Snickers slightly destroyed.
No, I want it in one piece. I just want it to have less structural stability than a standard room temperature one.
Okay, I'm curious what everyone thinks. I don't want to knock that because
early afternoon though, just to say, by the way.
Same timing for me as the earliest you're going to see me with the Snickers. I will meet you that I would rather just have room temp over fridge cold, but I won't go 20-minute pocket.
Okay.
Because I can't even imagine how it probably gets so hot in your pockets. You know?
I don't know where to go with that.
Okay, let us know in the comments what is the perfect time to eat a Snickers. Maybe it's after dinner. I think APG's comment was, it is a dessert. So he just was like, you need to be eating this as a dessert. Like, have something else first.
I think it's even more insane that the Monster Chaser as well.
We'll see, regardless of what the breakfast plans are, how OpTic Gaming does.
All right, that's going to do it all for this episode. We can't wait for SLC. It's going to be another amazing event. It is genuinely always one of our favorite events of the year.
It is always up there.
It certainly is a great time. If you're thinking about coming out and you're a little bit on the fence, trust me, you won't regret it. So much to do. The SSG guys really do know how to put on a show. And a reminder as well to say hello at the SSG booth and check out the new Narrative SSG collaboration t-shirt. We really do hope that you guys love it. And we can't wait to see you there.
That's it. I want to say thanks for everyone, of course, for listening as always. And we'll either see you in the venue or on stream. And I think it's once again time to get on a plane.
Peace.